It's UFC Card Collab number 11. In this week's episode, me and Damian look at some leaked images of 2024 Topps Knockout. We answer a viewer question about what our thoughts are on female fighters long term, and we play Trash, Sell, Hold with 3 different UFC card products. As always, I hope you enjoy this video. I'm here with the absolutely stunning, the absolutely beautiful Damian from UFC Card Talk. Damian, what's up, my man?
You're always too kind to me. I'm great, dude. Currently, the back end of the holiday season for me, so I had a few weeks off from work, so just been chilling mostly and actually going over some of my PC cards. It's been a good time. What about you?
Nice. Same. I actually just got back from the beach, got some sun. We did get rained on and stormed on at the beach, but it was we got pelted by some windy rain, but it was a good time. It was a good time overall.
Good time, yeah.
And speaking of getting absolutely pelted, we have 2024 UFC Knockout coming on the way. I wanted to get your thoughts early on in the episode, and we'll actually kind of get to look at some cards live, look at some of the designs that we've seen, and show the viewers and kind of show you at the same time. So, you know, there's been a lot of different leaks going on. We'll go ahead and screen share here and look at some of these and kind of what's your thoughts overall on some of these designs?
So yeah, the only designs I've seen, I mean, I'm not even sure if like Blowout or Beckett or any of the websites have actual like images up yet, but I've only have seen some of the leaked images on the stories of Instagram from the fighters signing. But so far, I mean, I think it's hard for me to be kind. I was actually thinking about this. Like, why am I being such a hater this year on Topps? And I don't know why it is exactly, but I haven't been the biggest fan of the designs. I think there's something that just is a bit mismatched with them. Obviously, I wasn't the only one who thought that although that one's pretty nice, actually. I'll agree. The Octagon Warriors, that looks kind of cool.
Yeah, this is kind of like WWE, right? Kind of like wrestling going on.
Are they on card? Or are they
yeah, so all that I've seen have been on card. All the pictures I have, like here's a nice one from O'Malley, a little booklet, and this one's on card as well.
Yeah,
what you think about that with your boy?
It's not bad. I mean, the booklet ones, they're a lot of space there for the auto.
Yeah.
At least it's on card. I mean, you got to love the on-card autos. Obviously, first time we've had on-card autos for Topps for their return. So, I mean, as I said, it's hard for me because I do have poop-colored glasses on right now. I've got the opposite of rosy-colored glasses. I don't know what it is, but I mean, some of these do look cool. I haven't seen this one either.
Check that out, man. Gold on black.
Yeah,
that's kind of nice.
That's a 101, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I don't want to speak too out of turn. I won't say I like it. I won't say I hate it. I'm actually gonna be a little bit reserved yet because I feel like if I say I'm gonna not like it, as I'm not informed enough to be making too much of an opinion just now, but. Some of these ones, I've said the Warrior one looked really cool. That's been the favorite of the one I've seen so far. What about you?
This one is nice. I mean, it's kind of. I'm just excited that we're getting on-card autos here. Like a ton of the cards that I've seen have been on-card autos, and I think people, you know, really need to be appreciative and like be thankful that we're getting that because we only had on-card autos in Immaculate, and that was literally one product in the entire run of Panini did we get on-card autos. So for them to give us this in basically the third product, I think it's a good omen, and hopefully it's a sign of things to come that we can get some more on-card autos. Now, as the designs overall, it's still way too early, like you said. I need to see everything and kind of see where it is. But right now it seems pretty standard. Seems like, you know, they're not really taking too many chances, too many risks. You know, we saw them really take a leap of faith with Midnight, and I think that kind of busted. But, you know, I'm excited, especially with the on-cards, and we'll see what happens with it. You did mention like the blank space. I completely agree. There's a lot of blank space on some of the designs, but, you know, I think we got to take it as the positive that it is, and it's, to me, it's a pretty big deal to have this so far. As far as pricing, what do you think the pricing goes? I know a lot of people are scared, me as well, since we had 300 for Midnight, which is way too much. But what's kind of some of your speculation on that? What would you want to see this at?
I know what I want to see up. I'm going to start out with what I think it will be, and I
Okay.
think if midnight was, what do you say? Midnight was 300. I thought midnight was a little bit cheaper than that. But midnight
Um,
was 299. Was it?
yeah, it was 299, and then I think it got bumped up. The pre-order was 299, and then it got bumped up a little bit. I think so. It was
Yeah,
around
right. Well, I,
300.
I actually, I was actually going to estimate this will be a 299 product. That was basing it off the Chrome price. I think
Hmm.
this will be more expensive than both Chrome and Midnight from what we've seen, just for the fact that it is on card autos, and normally Knockout previous has been a bit of more of a premier product for UFC from Tops. So knowing that now, as I said, I was going to say 299. I think it'll be per hobby. I actually think I'm going to pump that up by $100. I reckon it's going to be 399 upon
Oh,
pre-order, maybe a little bit more upon release. But I actually think what it should be, and as I said, this is me just being a little bit of a negative Nelly, but I think when we're talking prices for UFC, what the demand should be, what the return on investment should be for those who will be ripping hobby boxes or potentially participating in breaks, I think it should be around the 180 mark, but it's going to be nowhere near that, of course. But that's just my personal opinion.
yeah, man. No, I completely agree with that. I hope it is not as high as you just said because that would be insane. I mean, we've seen Chrome and Midnight pretty much. We saw Midnight just free fall. Like it started at around 300. I'm seeing boxes at like 170 to 190 somewhere in there. So we're talking about $100 drop. And Chrome even has dropped a little bit. I think it was like around 230, selling around there 219. Now it's at around 200. So I think the price point needs to be around 200 for this to really be successful. Um, Initial release, maybe it's 250. I think if it was below that, I would be, I'd be able to swallow that price a little bit better. But if they're getting close to midnight prices at 300, I think that's going to be rough. And we're just going to see this product free fall again.
Yeah, I think to be fair though, like we just flick through some of those products now. We're getting gold on card ink autos, and then we're getting booklets as well. I mean,
Yeah.
that's much more like higher chase levels than what we've seen for Midnight and Topps Chrome so far. So that's exactly why I think they're going to be at least 299 a box. As I said, probably even higher. But we'll see. Hopefully for the people out there who will be buying boxes, they're well priced because as I said, that's the most important thing is people need to vote with their wallets and get the return on. I mean, even you're buying to collect, you don't want to be buying $300-400 hobby boxes and getting $80 worth of cards back. So, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, so coming into the segment viewer question, we had some great questions last week, actually two. Today we're going to be answering Tiago Nunez's question. You want to give a shout out to the guy that you're going to answer next week?
Yeah, shout out to Anthony 3666. He also asked a question, but we will answer that one next time around on the collab on my channel, just so you know, Anthony. But thanks for the questions, and obviously, guys, I'll prompt it again. Keep them coming. The more, the better. If we need to, we can actually like make a dedicated segment just for these viewer questions. So don't be afraid to send questions in. Just now at the moment, we're trying to space them out a little bit, but keep them coming, and we'll make more time if we need to.
Yes, sir. Thanks for that, Damian. You guys send them in the comment section below. All right. So the question this week was, what are your thoughts on female fighters' prices long term? And then we have the second part of the question. Who are your top three females of all time? So let's just answer that first one first, and then we'll go to the second one. What are your thoughts on female fighters' prices long term?
Yeah, no, super great question, Tiago. Thanks for that one. It obviously one of the other ones that get your mind ticking over, especially the second part of the question. Um, but I like it long term, especially if we consider the lower entry points right now that there is in female fighters comparing to the male fighters. And I don't see them getting less recognition and the love than what they already do. I only see the recognition and love for female fighters growing as the sport also grows, becomes even more international. And if we take in considerations the trends that we've seen in other sports like basketball and soccer in the last few years, I think there will be a time when these UFC female fighters will get even more love and more collectability. And I think, as I said, there will be a new level baseline for some of these legendary female fighters moving forward.
Nice, I love it. I'm glad you brought up other sports because that's something that I didn't necessarily think of. But we're seeing a big rise in the WNBA right now, and it's getting a lot more eyeballs and a lot more love. And if you think of it big picture for MMA, male and female are basically the only. Actually, it is. It's not basically. It's the only sport where people compete at the same time with the exact same rule set. NBA, WNBA, obviously totally separate leagues. Male and female UFC fighters operate under the same company with the exact same rule set in a sport, and I think that's really huge because it's kind of a groundbreaking thing. Besides maybe track and field, which is kind of not necessarily the same as far as sports go than like the really huge sports, but softball is a completely different sport as baseball. Do they have women's rugby? Is that a thing?
Yeah, they do have women's rugby league in Australia. It's another sport that's slowly growing and becoming bigger in competition and getting more eyeballs. But that was a great point, and I'm glad. Obviously, this is the great thing about asking questions. You're getting two different perspectives because I didn't even consider what you just said about actually the female athletes getting to compete on the same events at the same time, which is a really big thing as well. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, man. So I think female fighters, it's a huge part of the sport, but it's still like a really recent addition. I mean, I often forget how young this sport is. And I looked up the first female fight ever was in 2014. So it's only 10 years ago that the first UFC women's fight ever happened. So, I mean, we're still in the infancy of not only the sport of MMA and, the organization of the UFC, but when we talk about things like, female fighting and all that, it's like even a shorter time window. And, there's only been I looked up some more stats. There's only been 14 different women's MMA champions in the UFC. So like across all weight classes, there's only been 14 different people that were champions. We've had some great champs, but it's still so young. And so for long term, I think that there will be some boost and there will be some continued growth in kind of that area. But personally, I wouldn't touch any of the new prospects. I think it's how it is. It's very rare for male prospects to pan out. And I think when we talk about women's fighters and women's MMA, it's going to be even smaller that they're going to break through, especially now at this time when, the women's MMA is still pretty low as far as collectability goes. There's not a lot of people that are buying in for whatever reason. I do think that will continue, but I think that the main people that I would be collecting long term are just going to be the GOATs for sure.
Yeah, no, great point. Because I didn't even consider that as when I thought of long term. Of course, I was thinking of the already established legends that we're going to rattle off in just a minute.
The second part of the question was, who are your top 3 females of all time? So we're going to do this. You'll say your 3, and then I'll say my 3, and we'll work our way down to 1. So who's your number 3, top 3 females of all time?
All right, top 3. And as I said, this is another great secondary part to the question because it got the mind going and. I had a bit of a chuckle to myself because we can't even decide who the top 3 GOAT men are of all time. So
yeah,
it's going to be hard to come up with the 3 women, but obviously we're gonna do it here regardless. And I want to give an honorable mention to number 4 spot, just because I wanted to. Zhang Weili is my number 4. Number 3, I'm gonna chuck in Thug Rose Namajunas. I think she's super relatable. Her career has had the up and downs. And then also too, there's sort of the second part of her career that's currently unfolding, and we're going to see what happens with her moving forward. But I think there will always be in the top 3 spot in my opinion for Thug Rose.
All right, cool. So you mentioned my number 3 in the honorable mention, so we're pretty close there. I chose Zhang Weili, and I've just really liked her storyline. I've liked her career so far. To lose to Rose and then come back and get the belt again. She's faced some really high competition and she's won a lot of really close, scrappy fights. She's well-rounded, and she takes a lot of chances. But also kind of just the nationality aspect of her carrying the torch for Chinese women's MMA. And not only that, but being like the most successful Chinese fighter by far. So I think that she's representing, for a huge nation, and hopefully that helps continue to push other Chinese fighters to flourish and to come into this sport, because there's huge population there, and that would be good not only for the sport as a martial art to see more people coming in, but also for the business as well. I do think that she's pretty close to like being one of the best ever. I think if she can get 2 or 3 more title fights and go up and then maybe do something there, we're talking about, a serious argument. I do think Nunez has her by quite a bit, but I think if she can do some of those things, then it may be able to close a little bit, close that gap. So who's your number two, Damian?
All right, number two, and as I'm sure you're going to be as well, I'm sure there's not going to be a crossover here. This is where it gets tough, the top two, and it should be no surprise. Top two, obviously, people are going to have these interchangeable, and of course, I'm going to prompt people now. Let us know, guys, and girls, if you're watching. Maybe some girls are watching your content.
I don't know. I don't think there's ever been a woman watch the channel.
I'm going to go Ronda Rousey, number two.
Oh, nice.
Superstar power that she had back when she was in a prime. Everybody knew who she was and she started a new wave of women MMA in the way that almost Conor did back when Conor was at his peak of popularity as well. I mean, I remember hearing a podcast only recently when they were talking about, the years 2014, 2015, 2013 when she was at top. There was just girls dressing up as Ronda Rousey Halloween. As I said, I'm sure she started a new interest for women in MMA. And then also she has had some of the crossover with the WWE as well afterwards. So two markets there, which I think she's had her own success in, and I think that's why she'll always be interchangeable in the top three for sure.
Nice, man. We're actually tied here. I put Rousey at number two as well. I just being a history guy and a stat guy, I think it's pretty important, that she was kind of the first, the real pioneer, the best at the very beginning. I think that's huge when people look back in history. I mean, as far as like skill for skill, her skill set was pretty limited. And, we did see her, I don't want to say get exposed, but like it was early, the early start of the sport. And I think the game just wasn't as rounded, especially at that time period for women. There wasn't as many women competing. And, she did kind of have a tough little string of losses there at the end of her career. But, I think for the reasons you said as well about, her Hollywood stint and her wrestling career and the star power, that I think we have to put her here at two and just, kind of be grateful for how big of a star she was to really help prop up women's MMA. All right. And number one, who gets the gold medal? Who's the number one female?
No surprise here. She's just the greatest on it so far. And Amanda Nunes. And the fact that I don't need to rattle off 98% of the reasons why, or you need to say any more about Amanda Nunes being top, like that says it all for me. So I don't need to say any more. It's Amanda Nunes.
Yep, she's got like almost all the records. She's got insane highlights. She's been doing it forever as well, which is huge. And she has a good market in the cards as well. She has a pretty decent card market, and she sells very well for a female as well. Her first autos in the rookie that you have is like really sick image too. So I wouldn't mind getting one of those eventually for the display. But thanks again for the question, Tiago. And go ahead and drop a question down in the bottom. Also, people who are watching, who are your top three women's MMA fighters of all time?
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know. All right, moving on. We've got the divisive segment. We've got the trash, sell, hold. That is trash. Oh, you got to sell that. Hold. This week, we're kind of doing a product version. I wanted to kind of tweak it a little bit, and we'll try this out. It could crash and burn. It could be terrible, but we'll find out. So you out there at home, you have the opportunity to trash, sell, and hold these three products. Again, down in the comments, let us know what is your ranking, which ones are you choosing, and where are you putting them. All right, Damian. So here's what we got for this week. We've got the inaugural release of UFC card products. We've got the 2009 Topps Round 1 Hobby. The comps we saw were pretty high, man. I saw 2,310 that you sent over for me, so thank you for doing that research on Card Ladder. The second product is a debut product for Panini. Huge hit during the COVID era. It's a 2021 Panini Prism Hobby Box. Comps were like 550 to 750. And lastly, at number three, with a chance to hit, red ink rookies, Khabib, Nunez. We got Connor and Bones, on-card autos. It's a 2014 Topps Knockout Hobby Box. So where are you ranking these three trash, hold, sell?
So yeah, this is a great little concept that you gave us this time around for this episode. Obviously a little bit different, mixing it up with product instead of cards. So I did like that. Fun way to change it up. what are we going to start with? We can start with the hold. I don't think this should be any surprise for anyone. I think if you're going to have a product to hold,
I went solo cam for you.
all right. Yeah, so like I was wondering what's happening. Like,
Yeah.
you just dropped out, or
We got new software going on.
All right, we're super technical advanced. You must have had that phone call with Elon, did you?
Yeah, I said, Elon, we need a solo cam for Damian. Let's go.
Let's start with the hold, and it shouldn't be any surprise. I think, as I said, if you are holding this box for long term, I never think you're going to lose out. We saw with some of the comps that I sent through to you, this box, ever since its release, has always been expensive. One thing I've noticed about collectibles in general, if something's always been expensive, it's always going to be expensive. It's just how it is. It might fluctuate up and down a little bit, but it's always going to be the go-to, and that is the 2009 round one box. As I said, I think that set in general is just, I'm real bullish on it. I think it's a sure thing for what's going to be the most collectible moving forward for UFC, regardless of anything else that ever comes out. It is the first product that's ever been, and it was going to be obviously the most limited product to what UFC are ever going to have as well. Condition sensitive, yes, but I don't think that really going to matter, and especially when we're talking about new packs, new product, people are going to have the best chance of pulling the best condition cards, and I think that in itself is going to just hold and drive value moving forward. So then we get to the more fun of sell and trash. I'm going to have to, because we did see with the 2021 Prism, that has been fluctuating a lot. Obviously, it's debut year Prism. Prism Panini is like a super popular product, maybe one of the most popular products that Sports Cards has ever seen.
Yeah.
But that product has fluctuated a lot. I wasn't around in 2021 to know what the release price was for hobby boxes. I've heard
$1,000, dude. It was $1,000.
Absolutely insane.
Insane.
But then we've seen sales for around the six-ish hundred mark. I think there was one that was even in the 500s.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's fluctuated back up to 700. Prism, as much as I barry on, I hype on about Prism, the thing that I think lets Prism down is the amount of parallels, the amount of the bigger checklist, 200 fighter checklist. I think that hurts the product in terms of the chances that you're going to pull something, which really does matter moving forward when people are speculating in buying sealed hobby. Obviously, if Hamzat becomes a 3-weight champion, which it doesn't look like, it looks like he's about to be cut from the UFC. But if, say, for example, if Hamzat was a 3-weight division champion in 5 years' time, that would pump up the price a lot in my mind. But I just don't see that happening. It's fluctuating too much. As much as I do like Prism, it's one of my favorite sets. I'm gonna chuck that in the trash just now, and I'm gonna be selling the 2014 Knockout right in time with the release of 2024, the 10-year anniversary Knockout box.
Yeah, right.
It's going to be up on eBay, probably with the DC Sports auction, and I'm going to be cashing in big time and buying some O'Malley cards.
Nice, man. I like it. I'm surprised that you trashed the 21 Prism. I remember, every time we've talked about Prism, you always had amazing statistics and amazing reasoning to back up like why that's such an important product, and I'm very surprised by that. But some great analysis there. You covered basically most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. With 2009 Topps round one, I completely agree. Everyone's going to go back. It's an iconic set. People are going to continue to stumble upon it, and they're going to realize how much those cards should be worth. One thing that I think is kind of interesting with round one is it's a 100 fighter checklist, but a lot of them it's 2 fighters. They paired up with the fights. So if you think of it that way, the 200 checklist of Prism, it's basically the same thing as round one, but they just added 2 people fighting it with each card. So it's kind of an interesting thing with that. But I mean, you have all the crazy first autos you can hit. You have Rogan, Buffer, you got the ref cards, you got Dana White. So there's a bunch of interesting cards you can hit with that. And like you said, the the amount of cards and the amount of boxes that are out there is just the pop has to be so low on all those. So I'm for sure gonna hold the 2009, and that would be one that I would not even think about ripping. I think if I had one of those, I would just hold it for basically forever, and maybe I would have a price point on it. Like if it got to something insane, maybe I'd sell, but I don't think I would ever rip that one. And next we got the 21 Prism. Man, see, I kind of went back and forth on these last two. But one of the main factors that I was looking at is I was looking at the rookie class here. And we've got Yuri, Marab, Jamal Hill, Moreno, Hamzat, Burns, Cyril Gahn, Chandler. So we've got some big names. But currently, like if we look at all those names currently, they're all kind of on the downhill slope. And I don't think any of them were able to kind of really break through into like the upper echelon elite great category. I mean, you have people like Moreno, who had a really good title run, but even now, like nobody's talking about him. He's kind of forgotten, even within that own division, right? And so I think as far as collectability goes, I think maybe this product will continue to kind of wane unless we have one of those people really kind of transcend. But then we look at, the Habib and Connor base cards that are selling, the golds and whatnot that we talked about a few weeks ago, and they're still doing up really good numbers. But for those reasons, I'm gonna have to follow you, man, and I'm gonna have to trash the 21 Prism, and I'm gonna sell the Topps Knockout 2014. It has my most sought after card in it, the Habib first auto. So there's no way I'm gonna trash this product. It would be so sick to get one of these and to rip it. And honestly, if I got one of these, I might rip it just because you never know what you can get. And if you got a red ink Connor or a red ink Habib, dude, that would be to the moon. So guys, let us know in the comments below, how would you rank these products? Trash, hold, sell. What would your list be? And next up we have Damian. Agree or disagree?
Agree or disagree?
That is the question. UFC cards will never be as big as NBA, MLB, or NFL sports cards. Damian, do you agree or disagree with that statement?
Well, first off, shout out to you, Zach, because I love this topic. I love this sort of stuff. I love comparing UFC cards. Not that I'm massive into other sports, but I think this is just such a fun thing to speculate and think about. So I could speak about this stuff for hours. Lucky for you and the viewers, I've actually made some notes to key points to stick to. So I'm not going to babble on for 25 minutes. But no, UFC cards will never be as big as the other three sports, in my opinion. And here is why. I believe collecting by nature is derived by two main things, at least for my own experience, my own opinion. And one of those, the first thing of that is nostalgia. And UFC cards they haven't been around for the 70, 100 years like the other sports have. And no one here watched UFC as a young kid or collected UFC cards as a young kid. And simply put as well, this is a big factor, at least in my opinion. UFC is not a kid-friendly sport, and I don't think it ever will be unless the UFC creates some sort of less violent, more kid-friendly league one day. And chances are, even if you were a UFC fan as a kid, if you are a UFC fan now as a kid, I think you're watching one of the other three big sports anyway. UFC, I don't think it has any nostalgia relating to people's childhoods, which is a massive component for collecting in the future. The other thing that I think is the other massive driving factor for collecting is pure value. And I mean, we all want things that we want to collect that hold some sort of value, even if it's, as I said, the nostalgic value or whether that's monetary value. And UFC cards, they struggle with value from what we've seen with the data, all the things we talk about. Like they struggle for 90% of the cards. Obviously, the value will increase with demand, but in order for the demand to increase, new people need to come into the cards and collectibles. And I'll have to admit that the other three sports are more tempting in terms of value and resale anyway. So I don't think that UFC is really that comparable if you want to put it up against basketball or baseball or NFL cards. And tying back into this point of nostalgia I just talked about, say we have 1 million new people come into collecting cards in 2024 thanks to Fanatics. I think realistically, the majority of them, they are going to be going to those other three big sports that they watch more regularly as a family, or they have more ties to when they were kids, for example, as I talked about. And I think the gap between UFC, NFL, MLB, and NBA cards is just way too big to close. And I think that's the way it'll always be. Not to say that UFC won't exponentially grow in the future. I just think the gap now is just too big.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I completely agree with this statement. I don't think, UFC cards will ever be as big as the other three big sports. And I kind of wanted to look at some numbers when I was doing this just to see kind of where we are, where do we sit right now at this moment. And last month in June, I looked at, how many cards were graded and with the different card companies. And we had 12,100 UFC cards graded, right, in the month of June. The other three sports, NFL 178,000, NBA 217,000, MLB 228,000. So right now, our segment is 12 times smaller than the other big three, basically. And I do think the sport is going to continue to grow. I do think that the UFC card market will continue to grow. But I think it's going to be a long time, man. I think we still we're still in a pay-per-view model with UFC. None of the other big sports are in a pay-per-view model, and it doesn't make sense to be in a pay-per-view model if you're really trying to be mainstream crossover. So I think there's still a ton of time that has to pass. But if we look at it like, can you still make money? I think you still can make money long term. And let's say it grows. Let's say we grow 5 times. The market grows 5 times. That potentially means that the really expensive cards could also grow 5 times. So if you're talking about really high-end grail cards, I think there's still, a pretty good amount of money that could happen and a pretty good, amount of value that could be happening if you buy in now and it does continue to grow. And just comparatively, you were talking about how lucrative the other sports card worlds are. You're talking about millions of dollars for grail cards, millions of dollars versus, the most expensive UFC card. If you have a crazy sale, what is it, 50,000? You have like a Connor red ink or a 101 rookie, it's like 50 to 100,000 maybe. So there's still like multiples and multiples that this space could grow. And not to mention the pop reports that we have, which is a plus for UFC card world. I mean, you're talking about super low pops comparatively. You're having rookies that have 500, 1,000 different cards that have been graded versus UFC. The Silva that I just bought was like below 50 cards that were graded. So I don't think it will ever be as big, but I think we don't need to be as big. And there still is a lot of room that these cards can grow. And even at this moment, after all the growth that's happened in 2020 and COVID years, I still think we are pretty early on in UFC card collecting.
Yeah, no, definitely some great additional points that you just made. And as I do want to obviously clarify that as well, I think long term wise, like value is going to be there. I think, as you said, when we 5x UFC cards, which I have no doubt they will, there's 20 of us in the community at the moment. That's going to become 100. So when you, but no, just joking aside, like as you said, like value is very much there. It's only going to continue to grow, no doubts about that. But as I said, if you're talking about 5xing the community right now, you're still not even half of what the community is for the other sports at the moment. So I don't think we ever will be. And as I said, not to say there's not great value, and I don't think anyone who is buying UFC cards at the moment is going to have a problem if they're worried about longer term value.
Yes, sir. All right, next up, we got the pay-per-view buys segment.
Time for pay-per-view buys.
Damian, we had UFC 303. Let me know how that went for you. Did you move anything? What were your stats here?
Did I move anything? Of course I didn't move anything. That's what happens when you got an Ian Gary prism hanging up on the PSA 9 slab that just absolutely no one wants. And was that a good fight? It was real back and forth. It was real close. Half people probably thought that he even lost that fight. He carried on like an absolute tool afterwards. I had it listed at so to recap for everyone, PSA 9 Orange Prism 2023. So it is his first year Prism, but regardless, still a second year card. Was listed on my eBay, 65 OBO. It got 7 views, no watches, no action, and yeah, I might have to give that card away to my neighbor or something. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, you could put it on in your driveway next to your trash can and see if anybody wants to take it.
Can hold my trailer, the back tire of my trailer from rolling.
Yeah, right. That was a man. I keep going back to that fight and thinking about it and thinking if Gary gets the RNC in the first round, like that's a big statement win, and people, it's a totally different narrative. But for whatever reason, he can't make the adjustment on the choke. Maybe he feels his arms burning out. He had MVP dead to rights. Like it looked so tight. Maybe it wasn't, but visually, it looked like he had it. But it's crazy how like that small of a thing can change the narrative from like, oh, give him a title shot to like, is this guy even gonna be, you know, top 10 talent? But sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's all right. I'm just gonna bitch about game. All this all good.
Well, yeah, sorry you didn't make a sell, man. I completely understand. And I had the exact same. Actually, I had an even worse scenario. I had the 2022 Ricky Simone Gold of 10 rookie. It had almost no eyes, 4 views, 1 watcher, 0 action, and he gets completely outclassed in his fight. So there may be no way that I get to move that. Yeah, the first fight on the prelims gets absolutely outclassed. Although the guy that he fought did look pretty solid. So I can't necessarily remember his name, and I didn't write it down. But he's a guy that I'm going to have my eye on because he was pretty wild, man, and his opponent was game. So at least I got to watch that dude fight. All right, Damian, so we've got UFC 304 coming up. We got my man Leon. We got 2 championship belts on the line for the main and co-main. What are your plays for UFC 304?
All right, so for 304, I am pulling a dusty card out of the dusty drawer because the world is looking pretty dusty as well over here. But I have got the Panini Instant from 2022. They released a rated rookie set of their own, Don Russ, on the website for the Panini Instant website, and it was a print to order. It was a whole set from all the rookies from 2022, so it was a cool little set to get at the time. They were numbered to 492, so only 492 sets were ordered. And I'm going to be putting up the Ton Aspinall. Obviously, we've talked about how he is one of the better rookies from 2022, if not the second best, up there with Ilia Topuria. But that one is going to be up on my eBay, and it's going to be up for $11. But what I'm going to be trying to do this time around as a bit of an experiment, because I'm not too worried about selling this one, if it sells, if it doesn't, whatever. But I thought it could be a cool little experiment to try, is to add the free postage as a part of the listing. So I haven't done this before, never done an eBay listing with free postage. I'm going to see if this sort of pumps up the stats, gets more views, gets more watches, even gets a sale. We'll see what happens, but I'm interested to see what difference free postage can make this time around. Hopefully get a sale.
Yes, sir. We got to get some wins in the column. We've been having a tough time here with the pay-per-view buys segment and moving any cards. And hope, Tom, I mean, you're talking about a huge headliner. He's going to be, battling out with Blades. This is kind of a redemption fight. It's their second one. He blew out his knee the first time. I'm really excited for that one as well. I really like Blades, and I really like Aspinall. So it's going to be one of those where whoever wins, I'm going to be kind of happy for him. All right, what
are you selling?
I've got a divisive guy. People love him, people hate him. I've got the 2022 Select Paddy Pimblett Red Disco Octagon Slide Rookie of 99. I have it for a buy it now. It's got 3 views and 4 watchers. It's been up for like 520 days. It's got no sales movement at all, nothing. It's up for a 65 buy it now. I'm hoping to get maybe at least 50 for this. I got 2 of his rookies in a lot for like 65 or 70. So if I can get somewhere around that and then sell the other rated rookie, it's an orange hollow rated rookie for like 15 or 20, I'll probably be even on it. But man, I think people, the tide has swung too far on Paddy Pimblett, in my opinion. He was way up here. He shouldn't have been way up here, but now he's like right here. And like, I think he should probably be somewhere in the middle. So people, just thinking of the matchup with King Green, name change King Green, I think Patty has a lot more ways to win than Bobby Green does, King Green. That's going to take a long time to not call him Bobby Green. But but yeah, I'm hoping he can kind of shock the world because I feel like a lot of people are not taking Patty seriously. But I don't think he's an elite level lightweight, but I also think he is definitely, a 10 to 15 lightweight that could win and, have a lot of 50-50 matches with those type of guys, with type of guys like King Green. So maybe he can get it done. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a sub in this fight, and maybe I can cash in and finally get rid of this Paddy Pimblett because I've had it for so long and I don't want it anymore.
Yeah, no, it's you're right about Paddy. I think people forget that he had like a whole other career at Cage Warriors. So it was sort of like no real surprise that he was sort of, not to say that he can't get better, but it's not like his learning curve is going to be like this.
Right.
He's not that young. He's been around for quite some time already. And then, as you said, like it wasn't any real surprise about his overall skill level, even coming into the UFC. Had a couple of early fights against, obviously, a couple of cans who you know, one of them even rocked him and got him in trouble in the first fight, but he obviously pulled off a win. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Paddy, but I agree he should be a little bit higher than what he is.
I mean, we'll go ahead and round out the show here. I have a question just for you. You've used Card Ladder to help me many times on finding different comps. You've helped me, with the Silva comp that I just purchased. You helped me with some of the comps for even in this episode. So I wanted to know, what is your final verdict on the Card Ladder software? Is it worth the money, and who should pull the trigger on it versus who should not buy it? What are your thoughts?
I think, obviously, great little question. Hopefully, it helps some people like who have stuck around this long. Shout out to you guys and girls, because there's girls watching for sure. But yeah, to keep this simple, I think, is it worth it? It depends on who you are and what you're doing in the card hobby. If you're someone who is buying more expensive, less like cards that aren't sold as often, and you're wondering, oh, what's a fair price, then I think it's worth it for you. For the average person who's just maybe buying cards here and there, getting into breaks, whatever, no, I don't think it's worth it. There's a lot of free software programs out there for people to use, such as even eBay sold. Looking at eBay sold listings, I don't think that's a bad thing to do, considering it's UFC cards, and that's the biggest platform for UFC buying and selling for cards. The only reason why I like it is because it allows me to jump into a little bit more data and therefore make content around it. So if you're someone who's wanting to get into content creation and looking at more statistics, then I think it's worthwhile for that, because you are getting, for example, as you saw, I can jump back and look at sales from back in 2012, 2010 on boxes of 2009 round one. I mean, there's no other way you can do that without paying for it. So from that way, and from content creation perspective, it's worthwhile for me. For the average person who's just buying cards here and there for their collection, even if they're buying cards up to $500 or so, I don't really think it's worth it. You can look at eBay and look at sold listings. You can go to 130 Point. I think even Alt as a website has, sales data as well. So there's enough data platforms for you to be able to make a decision on how much you think a card's worth. So the only reason, actually, as I said, why I've continued with it is because I think it's good for the channel. There are some things, for example, when I did that video last week about looking at Topps Chrome, I actually wish there was a feature that you could filter through that would average out the amount of sales to the amount sold. So say if it tells you how many sold items there was from a period of 3 months, for example, I think it would be cool if it could then go, okay, well, here's the average sale amount. The average sale amount for those sales was $5, and then you could compare that to the average sales of, cards from 2 years ago, for example, and then comparing that would be very interesting and would be a cool feature. But stuff like that, it doesn't have. For UFC cards, it is a little bit more limited if you want to go into the card ladder index, and then also, as we saw, like there was a massive spike in UFC cards where it pushed the value back up. But that was because we had a Dustin Poirier fight used walkout attire from 303. So
yeah,
I mean, yeah, the data and the analytics get pushed a lot for UFC from just one sale. So it just goes to show the base isn't fully there for UFC.
Right.
But yeah, as I said, once again, content creating, you want to get in content creating around UFC, absolutely, it's worth it. But for the average person, I don't think it's worth it, no.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected you to say. Unless you're buying, kind of higher end cards, closer, $500,000, it probably is not going to necessarily benefit or have you, pay for itself by finding, the super detailed comps. But even when I was looking at for cards that are not sold often, like the Silva that I purchased, or like the products that we mentioned today that are just really old, that like I think there was only one sale that I could even go off of. So how much is the Card Ladder membership per year?
Per year, I don't know. I know I think it's $14.99 or something per month. So I just pay a per month subscription.
Okay.
Should I say?
Yeah. So you'd have to.
So yeah, as I said,
So like 200 or something like that.
Yeah. So obviously it works out to be, what's that? That's, yeah, about 175 or something a year.
Okay. So you'd have to potentially have comps that are, with all your buys, you'd have to save 175 plus a year for it to really kind of pay for itself value wise, which honestly, if you're buying higher end cards, I think that is very doable.
Yeah, but see, that's where it gets a little bit misconstrued, because values over the last 2 years have just dropped completely. So even if you're looking at a value, go, oh, that was $300 2 years ago. Well, now you've got to sort of make up, because it's only sold 2 times over the last 2 years. You've got to sort of make up in your own head what you think it's valued or what you want to pay for it anyway. So it's it can be not even that helpful in certain instances, to be fair.
Yeah, for super.
And then even it could be the opposite. You could have a 1 of 1 maybe, or you could have an out of 5 that doesn't sell very often, and that card maybe has gone up in value over the last 2 years. It's really, I think, as I said, definitely for the average person, you should just work out what it is that you want to pay for a card. Not worry so much about comps. It is what it is. You want the card or you don't. Obviously, you don't want to be ripped off, but I think you can make your own decisions up of what's fair and what's not.
Yeah. I will say, like, when you're talking about more modern cards, I completely agree. Like, there's a huge flux within, year to year or last 2 or 3 years. But if you're talking about, like Grail cards, I really don't think they've moved that much. Obviously, you're going to have all the data to back that up as true or false. But I think they've stayed relatively stable comparatively to more of the modern cards. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you really want the card, you may have to overpay for it, especially if it's a lower pop card or a card that doesn't pop up that often on sales either. But some cool information there. Hopefully that's helpful for anybody that's been speculating on whether to buy one of these card softwares that kind of tells you more analytics and more data for comps. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us today. Be sure to leave some comments below. What are some fun questions you want to ask us? It can literally be anything in the entire world. It could be funny question, dumb question, MMA question, whatever. Me and Damian love answering viewer questions, and we do want to make a segment out of this in the future. So hit us up below. Damian, thanks for coming, man. Any closing words or things you want to tell the audience?
Nah, we're good.
We're good. Let's wrap this up. Yeah. Oh yeah. Go over to Damian's channel if you're not already subbed. The information for all that will be in the YouTube description, so you can pop up over there and check out all the fun videos that he's making. Thanks for coming, man.
No, it's always a pleasure. Thanks, sir.